What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and check out the content. With that being said, man, I want to talk about the Clippers. And I know a lot of people down on the Clippers because they are, I don't know what they are, like 5-15 or something like that, right? But and I don't know why people surprised. Like their big three is just old. They injured, and their career is every most of these guys' career is winding down. Chris Paul, I think, announced that he's retiring after this year. Kawhi Leonard, hasn't been healthy. I don't know when the last time Kawhi Leonard played a full season. And then when you think about James Harden, like James Harden, throughout his career, never been able to go deep into the playoffs, for the most part. And now as they get older, I can't see why people would think that, like this could be the year, like they were going to be, contending. Everybody, maybe that's something that they were just trying to put out there in the media, for LA fans, for the Clippers fans. But for the most part, I don't think people really bought into it, right? And so they was discussing this team on Running Back Podcast, right? And I think it's due to the fact their lack of success is due to the fact just everybody just old. They don't really have any talent, you know. Even if they were able to, if this team was able to stay healthy, or say they got healthy towards the end of the season and they backed into the playoffs, they limited. Everybody's limited. Kawhi is, he's older. Like I said, he's not gonna be able to get up and down the court. In the half court, he will be somewhat consistent and effective. James Harden, I just think these guys will get wow, these young teams, they get ran off the court, basically, in my opinion. So with that being said, I'm going to play the audio from the Running Back Podcast and come back and give my input on what I think about what they say.
I promised we would stick with an LA start to the show, so we'll go to the bad now. The other team out here, the Clippers. I 5-15 is where we're sitting, 13th in the West. They've lost 13 of the last 15. Their ranks in offense and defense are awful. Back-to-back losses to the Grizzlies and Mavericks over the weekend. They've lost 4 straight. Lou, I feel like I've touched on a lot of the negativity there. What is the problem here?
I'm gonna go back to the bench. I feel like they can score with the best of them, and they've shown that, right? But when your starters and when your stars off the floor, where can you go to get some production when it comes to those 6 and 7, 8 minute stretches where those guys are off the floor? And I think that's where they're losing. That's where they're losing games. Like, the last couple of games that they've played, with the exception of I want to say the Lakers game, they've been the 2 or 3 possession games, right? With the exception of that game. It means a lot. Like, they got to explore some options to get that bench stronger. They were outscored by Memphis 47-15 on the bench. Then you play against the Mavs and you get outscored 41-5 on the bench. And both of those games, like I said, are determined by a few possessions. Like, they have lapses when they go to the bench. They got to figure that out. Obviously, like I said, they offensively, they're among some of the best in the league. But when you're ranked 19th in defense, you can't just expect to outscore everybody.
All right, let me. I kind of push back on what Lou Williams is saying because it starts with their starters. Like their starters basically only going to be able to give you a few. That's why he's saying like 7-minute lapses and stuff like that, right? Because they old, you gotta their bench gotta come in and take up more of the lead of the load because you got these guys old and they need the rest. Kawhi is not healthy, or they want to try to keep him healthy for the whole season. Chris Paul is old, so that's why you need 7 minutes out of the bench, right? James Harden, he come into the season out of shape, always try to play his way into shape. That's his issue. So when you go to the bench and you talk about Bradley Beal, right? Bradley Beal is out hurt. That's true. They don't have a bench. And and their starters, the starters that they do have, not Kawhi is not the two-way player that he was back in the days. He just not. And then on top of that, he need, they trying to limit his minutes. So it's not just the bench. You can blame the bench. You can make the bench the scapegoat, but it's not the bench. Like if Kawhi was playing the way he played in Toronto, then I think the bench, whatever you get from the bench is just a plus, but it's more than just the bench. I think it's just their main guys just are old.
And try to go out there. So for the age of this team and not being elite defensively, that's where you're starting to see some of the red flags. That's where you're starting to see some of the problems. I think they're fixable problems, but right now they haven't figured it out. And that's why they're off to this 5-15 start. So they're a tough spot to be in, especially in the West and how the West is built. Like you can't get behind the 8 ball in the West with a lot of these teams and how they're playing. And the Clippers have found themselves in that position. I'm sure they're going to be active before the deadline, trying to get some scoring or trying to get somebody. But you had Norman Powell right there in uniform. You had that guy that would have gave you that balance. But that's going to be a conversation I'm gonna leave for Boogie to to put the onus on whoever he want to put the onus on. But
now speaking on Norman Powell, Norman Powell had a good season last year, right? A really good season. For him, that was a career year last year with the Clippers, right? Norman Powell did. So why did Norman Powell get the opportunities that he had last year? Because of injuries and stuff like that. Like this, Norman Powell is not a rookie. This wasn't his second or third year in the league. Norman Powell been around for a while, right? And so now that you gave him an opportunity, his stock went up around the league. The league saw that Norman Powell could do what he was doing. His stock went up, and so they got they took the opportunity to bring somebody else in, which was dumb. Which I don't think that was a wise decision to let Norman Powell go, but they let him go because they saw that his stock rose. Norman Powell right now is in Miami doing his thing, right? While you have Bradley Beal sitting on the bench, nursing an injury. But let's hear what Boogie Cousin had to say. The onus still falls to their veterans, Kawhi and James Harden. All of that fall on them because they're not two-way players. They are not two-way players anymore.
It's for me, it's bench productivity, activity, the age of the team, and them not having a defensive mentality and presence at this point in the season.
Yeah, you bring up a great point with Norman Powell, and when you have a aging stars like Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, you never know how consistent they're going to be, how healthy they're going to be. And you trade Norman Powell, who just came off a career year, damn near should have been an all-star, and now you see what he's doing in Miami. That was a bad trade. And again, this team is a collection of older, aging stars that, it's funny, you said they can score with the best of them, Lou, and we think that because we'll see the explosive nights from James Harden. We'll see the big scoring. But at the end of the day, they really can't score, and they play slow, and they're a horrible rebounding team, and they're 28th in assists, which means it's a lot of James Harden, dribble. Hopefully he can collapse the defense, and he's been a bright spot. He's been pretty consistent if you look at his numbers throughout the season, but you mentioned the bench. Bogdanovich hasn't done much. Chris Paul has been in and out of the rotation. Like he's got Batums, the Lopez's. These guys are all out of their prime. And it's almost like anything they do is a plus, and they're not doing much. So I think we expected a lot from this team on paper, and the league is too fast now, and everyone's too young and athletic and good for this team to keep up. So I expect them to be extremely active at the trade deadline. They don't really.
I don't even think at the trade deadline, this team, they don't have any, they really don't have any pieces unless maybe they give up some draft picks, right? But again, they old. They got to go young, the Clippers. I think they got to just bring in some new, when they get to the draft. When they get to the draft, man, they're going to have to really draft somebody. They're going to have to hope to be able to rebuild through the draft, basically, because they don't have anything that anybody want. Bradley Beal hurt, and everybody else is either irrelevant or old. So, this season right here, for me, as far as I'm concerned, the Clippers is a wash. Now, they can talk about doing something at the, at the trade deadline, but that's just, I guess, to make the fan base happy.
Have that many assets is the problem, because who wants to take on these older contracts and older guys that aren't working here? Like I'm one of these other teams. I don't want them. Like it's just a tough situation, and you can tell the frustration's boiling over too at the comments by Kawhi Leonard, the comments by James Harden talking about this is the most challenging he's ever been, and he's been in a lot of sticky situations. So that's saying a lot. But to lose 13 out of 15, I don't care how old they are, how aging they are. It's unacceptable with how it's.
See, and they not, and to be honest, like these guys now, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, they are not good players anymore. Like James Harden is putting up numbers, but the numbers don't affect winning. He's number one. He has always just been an offensive player, right? And now somebody got to shoot the ball, so James Harden is going to shoot the ball. So he's going to get his numbers. Chris Paul, they're not even as like what they were really good at when they were younger. It's not enough. Like the guy, like Parsons said, man, the NBA is just too young, too fast for them guys now. They can't play, they can't get past you on offense, and they can't stop you on defense. So they need to scrap this.
Talent is on this team.
Yeah, Boogie, we say blow it up. And like Chandler just said, it's easy to say that, but if nobody wants the pieces you're trying to blow up, like what exactly does this future look like here? And are we looking at organizational changes? I know you have a great love for Lawrence Frank, but like Ty Lue, all of that. So what happens
that's
next?
The glaring issue. That's the glaring issue that seems to keep getting overlooked in this scenario. When you think about the guys involved, you think about the coach, he's a champion. You think about the franchise guy, he's a champion. You look at this one dynamic that's in the scenario that has never done anything in any position he's been in to where he's produced winning or championships, but he's the decision maker that continues to change his team around every single year. They get worse and worse. He tries to coach from behind the scenes, kind of hides his hands in those type situations. It's Lawrence Frank, and I don't know how many more seasons we have to go through before we start looking at this guy as the issue. It doesn't go any further than him. I think a lot of things would be different if he wasn't at the head of the realm. And, this season just continues to show that it's just not working. So I think it's time to move on with that. I do feel bad for, the stars and James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. These are proven guys that have,
All right. So Boogie Cousins said that it's Lawrence Frank, right? So if Lawrence Frank is the issue, and he brought in all these old guys, or he held on to all these old guys, then yeah, but some of the blame still got to go on these old guys, man, because Lawrence Frank not doing it. They need to blow it up. Who was that? Michelle Beadle said, blow it up and rebuild through the draft. That's all they can really do anyway. They don't have anything that people want around the league. Like, you're not going to be able to get anything for Kawhi. He don't stay healthy. Chris Paul is getting ready to retire. James Harden, don't nobody want it. Bradley Beal is hurt. They don't have anything besides maybe draft choices that people would want. And so I wouldn't advise them to give up their draft choice. Just get younger and better throughout, hope that you can get somebody in the draft that, can make an immediate impact. So, yeah, you can point the finger at Lawrence Frank, but, you still got to get younger. No matter who you bring in, you got to bring in somebody younger. So you may as well just do it through the draft, and just do like what OKC did, man. Just bring in a bunch of young horses, and hope that pan out for you. At least you'll have an exciting team. Like the Washington Wizards right now got a bunch of young guys over there, man, and they're exciting to watch, and hope that develop into something. But that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, man, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.